Carbohydrates are essential. Didn't you hear? Hey, what's shaking bacon? My name's Bruno Panucci. I hope you're doing well. So before we get into the topic about essential carbohydrates, I want you to keep in mind that I have this challenge I've been doing. It started in July. I'm going to be keeping it up every month, and every month I'm going to be tweaking it. And right now it's 10 squats every 45 minutes for an 8.5 hour window. Now you can start adding more to that if you like. You can start doing, say, 11 squats every other week. I think that's what I'm going to do just to keep it more interesting. I'm going to add a squat every week. So this is my addition to the challenge. The reason why I'm only adding one every week is just to make it a little more of a challenge. It's not supposed to be a workout routine. It's not supposed to be something to increase your cardio. It's just supposed to be a way to get your blood sugar down, which will help with your insulin resistance if that's something you're dealing with. And all around, it's good to do every 45 minutes to just get up and do something. So it's a good reminder. You can set that alarm on your phone or however you want. Some people are joining this challenge. I also have a membership to my YouTube channel. I had to wait for the approval from YouTube to put my memberships up. And now that the membership's approved, I can put that out for everyone to join if they want to. If not, I still suggest you join this challenge. You don't need to become a member to do this challenge. It's a really easy challenge. It's something anyone can do. So please join along. Now to the topic at hand, essential carbohydrates. Now, I don't know if any of you other carnivores out there have heard this, but when you talk to most doctors, most nutritional consultants, and I mean the vast majority, and also the vast majority of any sort of health gurus out there, they will look at you, even the average Joe in your population, just friends you have, family, and you tell them you've knocked carbohydrates out of your diet. They look at you like, and they just will debate and argue with you that you can't do this. This is a very unhealthy diet. So a carnivore diet is where you knock out carbohydrates completely, and you're just relying on fat as fuel and protein as your building block. So an 80-20 ratio is what most carnivores roughly settle on. 80% fat. It's basically like a strict keto diet. Now, nutritional consultants who have learned the benefits of keto aren't too concerned about carnivore because they know it's basically very similar. Carnivore is just a more strict version of keto. There's more foods eliminated. But the problem is most doctors have no nutritional training, virtually none. So I'm a massage therapist, and when I got my nutritional training was months, and I got a really good mark in that class. It was one of my better classes. I got a 99% in that class. And doctors get 4 hours of nutritional training, and it's not all at once. That's not their nutrition course. That's just what they've picked up here and there through their course as they go along to become a medical doctor. So some doctors go above and beyond. Some doctors learn a little bit themselves and start applying it. And they often start down the same road everyone else does. How many carnivores out there, when they thought they were cleaning up their diet, was cutting back on a lot of meat and increasing their vegetables, and maybe even went a step further towards following the food pyramid or whatever it was that the government was recommending that's really plant-based, and cleaning up your diet. Now, the good thing is, on almost any diet you not get a lot of the junk food and processed food. So most people feel good over a short window of time doing any sort of diet. But I can tell you one thing, this is the diet that I've done that has its own maintenance schedule built into it. I've never had that with any diet. Every diet I've ever done was to lose weight, but they weren't sustainable, at least not for me. And I've done lots of different diets, crazy ones, simple ones, strict ones, and I tell you, it just didn't work. Carnivore is easy to maintain if you're strict. If you need to be strict, which I do, I always say I don't have a lick, taste, or bite of anything off a carnivore diet. It's easy to maintain. You don't deal with cravings. You can sit in front of your old favorite junk food and it doesn't do anything. But doctors, most nutritional consultants, whatever their degree, even if they have a degree in nutrition, you have to keep in mind nutrition science, and most doctors who know about this will tell you most nutrition science is flawed. But there is some science out there that's good. The problem with nutritional science is it's really immoral and illegal to take a bunch of people, put them in a controlled environment. Really, the only way you would be able to do something like this, to do a controlled study for a long window of time, would be in like a prison of some kind, where they can't come and go, and they're being fed their meals day in, day out, and they have, whether they volunteered or not, they're being fed a certain diet. And that's really the only way you can see the benefits of these studies long term. Even the best controlled study on nutrition is only weeks long because it's really expensive and it's just considered almost inhumane to put people through those conditions against their will. You might get volunteers in those groups, but for the most part, you got to keep in mind to do a study like that, you might be putting certain people at risk. If you want to do a study that's going to talk about the benefits of, say, fasting, who's going to sign up for a 10-day dry fast or a 5-day dry fast? Because that's considered nutritionally unethical to do. So the same thing as, say, a carnivore diet. There's so much propaganda out there that vegetables are the way to go and carbohydrates are essential. They don't say they're essential in your diet, but they look at you like you're a wacko if you say you've cut out carbohydrates. You have to keep this in mind, first and foremost. Protein is essential. You'll die without it. Eventually, you will die. Your body will start recycling a lot of proteins, but over time, you will become malnourished and you'll die. You'll become so susceptible to illness, you will eventually die. Fat, it's the same thing. We can't live without fat. Now, we want to make sure to have good fats in your diet. But guaranteed, once again, just like protein, if you go without fat for too long in your diet, you will die. You'll get sick and eventually die. Now, carbohydrates, your body makes its own sugar. We all know this, called gluconeogenesis. I learned about it in college. And that's where your body makes enough sugar for your brain and anything else that your body needs the sugar for, because it's not just needed for your brain. I mean, it's part of the dawn phenomenon. When we wake up, our body's blood sugar goes up. That's why your blood sugar is usually higher in the morning, because your blood sugar goes up, your adrenaline goes up, your cortisol goes up, everything goes up to naturally wake you up out of your sleep. So we don't just use blood sugar. It's a fuel. Like, our bodies do use it. It's an easily accessible fuel our body makes. We don't need to eat it because our body makes it. So when we go up a flight of stairs, we're not burning fat to do that. We're burning sugar. That's in our blood. And then we go through our glycogen stores in our liver and our muscles, and then we start burning fat. Even if you're fat adapted, you're still burning through blood sugar first. That's without saying. That goes without saying. Even if you're fat adapted, our body has a process. First the blood sugar, then the glycogen, and then it starts going through our stored fuel. And we want that to be fat. We don't want it to be more sugar in our digestive tract. We want it to be fat. We don't want it to be muscle and lean mass, because that's not good. So you just got to keep in mind, there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate, despite what lots of nutritional consultants say, despite what lots of doctors say, despite the ignorance that your friends and maybe your family with the best of intentions might tell you. And that's the one question you can turn around and ask those nutritional consultants and those doctors when you say you're doing a carnivore diet, and they turn around and say, well, that's not healthy. Even my doctor will admit there's no studies to prove that a carnivore diet is unhealthy. There have been some studies that link meat to cause colon cancer, heart disease, and all these things, but they're very poorly done studies. And they pointed the finger at meat without excluding everything else in that study. So there was a bias in those studies, and it was a really poorly done study to begin with. Dr. Sean Baker talks more about that in the Joe Rogan podcast, episode 1050. You can find it on Spotify. It's not on YouTube for some reason. But he explains where that misconception came from, and it was fraudulent science. And we all know about the fraudulent Dr. Ansel Keys, where the cholesterol theory came from. So unfortunately, there's a lot of ignorance and misinformation out there about sugar and about carbohydrates and how we need them in our diet. And when you turn around and ask any of those doctors and nutritional consultants if carbohydrates are essential in the diet, I'd like to hear them tell you yes, because we know they are not. So I want you to keep in mind, because they can't turn around and tell you that. And if they do, they're talking out of their butt. At that point, they're trying to win an argument instead of being right. And that's not a good place to be in. And you can walk them down that path if you talk about a ketogenic diet. So lots of people think a ketogenic diet is a fad, and they don't think carnivore diet's a fad. Well, the ketogenic diet's been around, and that's not going anywhere now. People who do that, they may have a rough time sticking to it, because they eventually introduce a lot of processed foods into it. And I think that's one of the difficult things about a ketogenic diet. And I can see carnivore going that way, because there's a lot of carnivore foods out there that if you have a carbohydrate addiction, it's just not a good road to go down. If you don't have a carbohydrate addiction, maybe it's not a big deal. But people are making their own carnivore breads and their carnivore puddings and their carnivore ice cream. I have a sugar addiction, so I'm not going to eat a carnivore ice cream. I'm not judging anyone that does. All the more power to you. But for me, it's too close to the real thing, and I know I'll just go down that road. So the next time a family member, a friend, a nutritional consultant of some kind, or a specialist, or a doctor of any kind tries to tell you that a carnivore diet is unhealthy, You can tell them, well, what have I cut out? I've cut out carbohydrates. And when they turn around and say that a carbohydrate is essential, right off the bat, you know you have a problem, because they can't argue that. Anyone with common sense and any training would argue that that's not a healthy way to go. And the next thing they might go down the road with is fiber or the dangers of saturated fat. And right there, you know who you're talking to, because fiber, the average Joe is going to think that. The average doctor might think that. Anyone who's been trained on a ketogenic lifestyle knows, because your high fat balances everything you need in the digestive tract. And as far as the cholesterol argument goes, it's based off of a theory by Dr. Ansel Keys. You might want to research that. And it was never proven. It was never proven. If anything, it's really been disproven. Yes, it's a factor, but it's not the demon everyone thought it was. And that's what my own doctor told me over 12 years ago. Anyway, thanks a lot. I hope you're doing okay. And if you can, join the challenge. It's a fun challenge. I know there's some people that are already doing it with me. So the challenge is only 10 squats every 45 minutes. And I'll give an update on Monday talking about how my first week of squats went since I started it on the 1st of July. Thanks a lot and take care.